Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are?
My name is Peter Christian, and thank you very much for having me today. I am happily retired right now, although extremely busy, probably as busy as I was when I was working full time, and enjoying life.
Okay, thank you. Well said. I wanted to know about your past leading up into your present.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a fairly middle class family and neighborhood in New York City. Uh, Graduated from Brooklyn Technical High School, which was one of the specialized, still is one of the specialized high schools in New York. Went to Rutgers University and got my undergraduate degree in industrial engineering, and then followed it up with graduate work at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, also in industrial engineering. Then went into the corporate working world, spent some time at Air Products and Chemicals, left there and went to Crayola Corporation, who I'm sure most, if not all of your viewers are familiar with, Crayola crayons. We all grew up with those, and had 17 wonderful years there before I left and got into the consulting world. Spent about 25 years there, including starting my own practice with five other people. That company is still alive and well and doing very, very well. And worked with a number of companies throughout the country and even internationally on productivity improvements and supply chain and systems and so forth. When I retired at the end of 2018, and like I said, I retired. I got into writing. I've written and published two books. What About the Vermin Problem and Influences and Influencers. I've done a number of podcast shows, including the one that we're doing right now. I also author articles. I teach project management, and we'll be getting into a webinar series shortly where I'll be doing 8 webinars on a variety of different business subjects. Let's see, I'm on some educational boards at some of the schools that I went to, and enjoying life in general. Tomorrow night, I go see Billy Joel and Sting in concert. So I have a lot of fun besides the work stuff.
Okay, and let's backtrack a little bit. Tell me about how you ended up the president at ESPI.
Okay. Well, I was working with a consulting group out of Lehigh University called Enterprise Systems Center. So you see there's a distinction between the two names, Enterprise Systems Partners, Enterprise Systems Center. And they were going through some interesting times because they were dependent on some state subsidies for monies and so forth, and they had kind of lost those. So the folks I was working with at that point, we decided that maybe it was good for us to start our own enterprise, continue to work with the university, which we did for a while, and then kind of went off on our own. And like I said, got into working with a variety of different clients, mostly in the northeastern Pennsylvania area, but throughout the country, working on supply chain and productivity improvements and strategic planning and systems and so forth. So I got to see a lot of different companies, all sizes, shapes, in different industries and so forth, and had a really good time with it, and was able to bring the experiences I had from the corporate world into the consulting world to help them to make improvements to their companies and be more successful.
Okay, well said. And I mean, you were in the Napa area. How long, like, are you still in the Napa area, the northeastern PA area?
No, no. When I retired at the end of 2018, moved down to just above Tampa. So I'm in the Tampa, Florida area. So it's a lot warmer here than it is in a lot of other places, which is the reason why we moved down to Florida. But I still reach out. You know, I do teaching in Pennsylvania via the internet. So it's great with the outreach we have today where we can talk to people and deal with people in a variety of different areas without having to physically be there.
Okay, and tell me about the Crayola, how you were an executive at the Crayola Corporation. Tell me, that is amazing. And it's an honor to have someone that is an executive director or executive at Crayola
Mhm.
Corporation. Tell me about
Okay. I joined there as an industrial engineer, so I got to work out on the factory floor with a number of different people with the operations. Got to meet people from all different backgrounds. In fact, I like the people on the factory floor better than I think than I like the executive people. They're more relatable and very honest with you. And when they realize that you have their best interest at heart, they can be your best friends. Uh, and I dealt with people who had many, many years working at Crayola, and they gave me all sorts of history about the company, which I tried to soak up like a sponge because it's interesting. It's interesting to know where a company came from and why they were where they were at that point. And I was able to do that. And they just love to talk to me about that type of stuff. So I had a really good rapport with the folks. Uh, from that, I was working in the engineering department with the people who designed a lot of the equipment and so forth, and doing studies for them. From there, a new vice president came on board who put me in charge of project management. From there, he promoted me to where I was not only doing project management, but also dealing with the new equipment or replacing old equipment or whatever the case may be. From there, I went into operations management. We had different operating divisions. Crayola was the big one, and they were the ones who sell to the places like Walmart and Target and so forth. But we also had educational, who sold to the different school systems, art materials. We were in the art materials area with fine arts. We had a line known as Liquitex and competed against the Winsor and Newtons and Grumbachers, if people are familiar with that. And we also had an international division. I worked for those three. I worked for international, I worked for art products, and I worked for educational. And I basically provided the direction for how we supported the sales and marketing of those different entities, and what inventories we had, and customer service, and so forth. From there, I went into quality and was the head of quality assurance for about 2 years. From there, went over to research and development and was a director in research and development, working with development of new products and refinement of existing products and so forth. And then when that time was up, that's when I moved out of Crayola and moved into the consulting world.
Wow. And before we end with Crayola, I just have to know, before you left, what were they talking about or trying to do for the future of Crayola? Because I used Crayola when I was younger and still today.
Yeah. Well, we had an interesting situation because we really didn't have competitors in regards to the types of products we were doing, the crayons and the markers and things like that. But what happened was, and we can all appreciate this, a lot of other leisure time activities entered the arena. Kids got into online gaming and computers and sports. It blossomed, particularly for young women, okay, who got into sports. They weren't just doing small things anymore. They were in softball and basketball and soccer. And so we were competing outside of our arena. Okay. And we had some tough decisions to make as to how we were going to do that so we could keep kids interested. So, what we decided to do was to focus on like the 4 to 12-year-old group of children, where they're still young, they have their imaginations. Yeah, you can put a kid on a computer, and that's nice. They can look up all sorts of stuff. But you put a crayon or a marker in their hands and a blank piece of paper, and tell them to draw you something, whatever it is they want, and just allow their imaginations to go. And they come up with some pretty creative stuff. And that's what we focused on, and it worked out wonderfully for us. So we weren't competing with the other leisure time. We were kind of staking out our portion of their leisure time, and it worked out very, very well. So And that was a big thing for Crayola. So they continued to thrive and grow and put out new products and so forth. And they're still the leader in their arena, but they're also a leader in the leisure time market for children as well.
Okay. And you've worked with 300 plus clients in business development, profit improvement, operations. Tell me about that.
Mm. Well, each company has its own things that they may feel they need to make an improvement on or they're struggling with. So when we would find opportunities and we would go out, and reach out to companies to tell them what we did and what our services were like. And then, of course, we would meet with them to find out the specifics. You really have to find out what it is that's bugging them or causing them some issues. And then really get into it. Come up with whatever the plan and the program are that you're going to do in order to help them. The key thing is the word help. So we made it clear to companies we were not there to do stuff for them. We were there to work with them, to help them to identify what the situations were, what the improvements were that they could make, and then turn it over to them really as responsible people to make the changes that were necessary. Now, in some cases, we had to work with them to continue to do that because they weren't familiar with that. They had let things go for a period of time and so forth. But the hope was that they would continue to do that once we left, because it's not a one-time thing. It's really an ongoing thing because problems are always cropping up in businesses that you have to address. But they would take that learning and then they would move forward with it and continue to do things the right way. In a lot of cases, they did. In some cases, they didn't, and we had some not so good end results. I'm sorry to say, but not everybody takes the advice that they're supposed to take and runs with it. But the good ones did, and they continue to do very, very, very well. The others, like I said, we had some struggles, and in a couple of cases, companies went out of business. Sorry to say, and it hurts because you don't want to see that. You take a personal responsibility for that. You look at what you could have done differently that could have made a difference to them. But at the end of the day, I guess that's just the numbers that you play sometimes.
Well said. And I wanted to know about your Amazon best-selling book, What About the Vermin Problem? Tell me
Okay.
what created you to imagine this book in your head and what it talks about.
Well, working for 300 different companies, you come across some interesting things, some things that stand out more than others. And that certainly happened with me. And I would say to my coworkers, someday we should write a book and that should be in there. And they go, absolutely. Well, when my retirement came and I was looking for what I was going to do next, I said, well, I talked about writing that book. So now I guess is the time to do it. So I sat down and I did. And I started with 12 instances that happened in a variety of different companies. Each one has a bit of a theme to it: communications, honesty, relationships. Um, I know better than all types of things like that. And I related the stories with a message that depending on the decisions that companies make and individuals make and the actions that they take, it could wind up to be very, very successful for them. But similarly, if they do the wrong things, all right, they take the wrong path, it can hurt them to the point where they could even close their door someday. And like I said, that's happened in a couple of instances. So it's to get the point across to people about what the companies did. And by and large, I don't mention the names of the companies or the people that were involved because that's not what's important. Okay. You wouldn't know who they were anyway. And probably most of them are gone now. But it's more important to know what they did do or didn't do. And then to point out to folks, don't follow the course that they did. Be wiser about it, be committed to what you're doing, be honest about what's going on, and provide the information that's necessary, and then do what needs to be done in order to make the improvements. So That was the genesis for that book, and I got it out. I got a lot of stuff off my chest. I probably had a lot more stories I could have written about, but it gets the point across to people about what I experienced in business, and maybe what they're experiencing as well.
Well said. And what about your book, Influences and Influencers?
Okay, so while I'm working on the first book, and I had written it first, and then I got involved with somebody who was going to help me to polish it and get it ready for publication and all that. And I found out all the things that I did wrong, so I learned for book number two. But as we're working through the first book, my coach says to me, "So, what about your second book?" And I went, "What second book? I wasn't planning on a second book." And she said to me, "Well, nobody ever writes just one book." And I went, I didn't know that. So I thought about it for a bit, and I said, "Yeah, I probably have some other stuff, but I didn't want to write about the same things and the same subject." So instead, what I did was I started to think about, okay, first one talked about choices that we make and things that we do, and why we wind up where we are. Well, what causes us to do that? Well, I thought influences and influencers. What are the things that influence us, not just in the business world, but in our lives, okay, that cause us to think the way we do, to act the way we do, to deal with people the way we do, and so forth. And who are those people that have that influence on us? You can start right from being a child. Your parents certainly have an influence on you. They try to teach you right from wrong, and what to do and what not to do, and what can hurt you versus what can help you, and so forth. And then that hopefully should continue through your adolescent life and into your adult life. Okay. And I certainly had that influences in my school situations, professors and advisors who helped me into the working world with people who I reported to or worked with, either in the company or in the companies that I was working with. And they by and large helped me. Now, there are some people you run across who do not help you for whatever reason. They do not want to see you succeed. Okay. And you have to take that into consideration as well, because you can learn from that. When you see things that you don't like, all right, and people that are doing things that you do not think are right, you mark that down and you say, I don't want to be like that person. And that's what I try to get across to students when I'm dealing with them. If you find somebody and you go, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and I don't agree with that, just remember that, because someday you're going to be in that position. All right. And remember how you felt about that person, and don't become that person, because other people are going to think the same thing of you that you thought of them. So I try to get that across. You have the opportunity to learn and to make a difference when you get in the position where you can. So take that advice and move with it. So the same thing is true there. There, I do name people, particularly the people who helped me, okay, because I want to give thanks to them. Hopefully, I did so at the time that they did, but certainly I did through the book, okay, to say, you helped me to get to where I was today or am today. You helped me to be hopefully the good person that I think I am and that other people do. And you had a profound impact on me. So I thank you for that, because you couldn't do it by myself, and certainly didn't. I needed that help, and I got it.
Well said. And if you have your book around, do you mind reading like a small excerpt from your book? Do you have it? If not, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I don't happen to have them right at hand. I would
It's
have to run
okay.
off to another spot to find them.
That's okay. So, where do you see yourself going for the future? Because you're blazing, Mr. Christian or Peter. Yes.
Peter, remember Peter.
Yeah.
Where do I see myself? Continuing to reach out to share my experiences and hopefully my knowledge with people, so that they have a better understanding of what's going on, so they can relate to the stuff. And by and large, people do relate to that. They say, where were you 10 years ago when I needed, some advice or whatever? Well, I'm here now. I think that's important for professionals to do that. You gain all this knowledge and experience. Then what are you going to do with it? You're going to sit at home and keep it to yourself? No, share it with other people. Okay. Let them realize that, yeah, you had problems too, but you overcame them. Here's how you did it. You dealt with some really good people, and here's how you dealt with them. You dealt with some not so good people, and here's how you take all that stuff into account. Now, don't follow it. Boom, 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 boom. You're not a robot, but take that into consideration. I like to say that we never stop learning. We never should stop learning. So as you find out different things and different points of view, take that into account in your thinking and your practices. Because I think it rounds you out. It makes you a better person. It makes you real, but put your own spin on it. Okay, don't try to be a Peter Christian. All right, because you're not. You're whomever you are. You have your strengths and things that you don't do as well as other things. We all do, but play to your strengths and be you. Be honest about it. Be honest with people. Treat them with respect, and I do, regardless of what their situation is in life. Waiter, waitress, bus driver, doorman, whatever. Treat them with respect. They're doing a job. They're trying to do the best they can. Hopefully, they're trying to improve themselves and maybe move up. And there may be some things in there that you say and do that can help them in order to do that with their lives.
Well said again. How can the people find you, Peter?
Oh, many, many ways. Let's start with LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. So if you look for Peter Christian, and there are, believe it or not, some other Peter Christians in this world, one who owns a clothing shop and all sorts of stuff. But look for the one that says author, consultant, teacher. Okay. And you can find me, and I have all sorts of writings on there, postings that you can look at, and articles and so forth. So that's number one. Number two, I have my own website. It's PHC Publications. Those are my initials, PHC Publications LLC. Okay. And you can go on there. And again, there's all sorts of writings and stuff, and you can put a comment in there and connect. Or you can email me at phchristian and then the number 53.com. And that is my email address. And you can send me an email and say, I heard you speak on Kimberly's show, and I thought that there were some interesting things that I would like to talk to you more about, or some issues that I would like to talk about, or I heard some stuff, but I don't quite understand it or agree with it. So I'd like to get a little more information, whatever the case may be. And we can start a conversation, see where it goes from there. So those three ways, LinkedIn, my website, or my email address.
Okay, Peter, I want to thank you for joining the show. Stay on the line. I want to thank y'all who watched the entire show. If you're just picking up, make sure when it reboots to watch it. It's awesome. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll be back on here later. Take care. Bye.
Bye.